Hey guys, I am back with another home decor project. Of course, we will be working with leather. Today we'll be making a DIY leather floor pillow. You can make one for yourself or even for pets. I've seen pets laying around on these things and I felt like it was time for me to make my own version. I do have a pet, however, this one is going to be for me. I'm going to try my hand at it first for myself, and then I'll make my pet a smaller version of this. So if this is something you're interested in making, let's get started. The leather that I'll be using is the Herman Oak Expedition in a 4 to 5 ounce saddle tan. This is actually my first time working with this leather and it is so beautiful. The hand of it is really soft and I thought it would be too thick, but for a home decor project that needs that durability is perfect. It almost has like a scratch resistance to it as well, so that's even better. Okay, so something that I learned in not just working with leather, but in bag making specifically, when I was starting to make different styles, such as bucket bags, circle bags, I was always having issues trying to get that perfect circle shape, right? So something that I learned in bag making is really to use basic math. If you have never tried this, this is a great technique for getting the perfect circle if you are making anything of a circular shape. So you want to start with the base of your piece. This size of our piece is technically 24. But because we need side seams or seam allowance, we're gonna measure this at 25. So 25 all the way around, perfect square, right? Or the size of your square might only be a 12 inch. If you are adding seam allowance, add 13 inches. Or maybe your square is a 10 inch. If it's a 10, add 11 inches for the seam allowance. So for ours, we are working with a 24 inch square, but we added another inch for the seam allowance, so it's 25. So we're gonna fold our square in half and then do another nice even half. Make sure everything is lined up properly. So if the diameter of our circle is 24, then we want to make sure that we half it up. So half of 24, is 12. So we are going to measure at 12 inches going around. And I'm starting with this corner here to measure out my 12. I'm just gonna add some dots so that I know where to cut this excess leather. Make sure that's even, because you don't want your circle looking crazy. If that's the case, then you can just bypass this whole method and yeah, cut a circle out to the best of your ability. But I wouldn't recommend it, especially when you are trying to get something to cut accurately for a specific style of bag, home decor, whatever it is that you're working on. Since I have my measurements of 12 inches, I'm just going to make sure I clamp all of these pieces together so everything cuts evenly. Then I'm just gonna go ahead and cut out my circle. I'm used to doing this with thinner layers of fabric that you could just pin together, but I'm working with really thick layers. So I'm gonna cut out this one side first, match it up with the other half, and cut out the other side next. And there's our circle. So now I'm just gonna take this circle and match it up to my other piece and cut that out. So now that we have all of our pieces cut out, we can go ahead and sew everything together. I'm gonna take the edges of my square pieces and do a 1/2 inch seam allowance here. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Right here, I'm just taking my trim and aligning it to one of the circle pieces so that I can start sewing everything together. After this first piece is attached, I'll attach the other circular portion, leaving a good chunk of area open to turn our piece inside out and to stuff it with filler. Now that we have our entire piece sewn together, you just want to turn it inside out. Normally, I really despise turning leather. However, this leather is so soft. After turning it inside out, I noticed that there were no scratches, no blemishes. It ended up being just as smooth and soft as it was before I turned it. So really now is the time you want to just pucker out the seams so that they're not caving in like this. So you pucker them out as best as possible to make it evenly round. Whew. And then with the hole that we left open, we want to start stuffing it. But before we stuff it, we're going to prep the top and bottom pieces for hole punching. What I'm doing right here is just flattening out the surface and making sure everything is even. I've already marked out my 9 spots on the top portion to see where exactly I'm going to punch my holes. If I was working with a thinner fabric, I would actually stuff it first and close off the side seam where the opening is, and then go ahead and add my holes. But because this is a really thick fabric, I want to make sure that the holes meet each other and go completely through, and then I'm going to punch them out using a leather hole punch. Now that we have marked our minor little hole punch markings, I'm just going to go ahead and put my pound board underneath the areas that I need to create a bigger hole. So I'm going to use a really small size leather hole punch. And that should be more than big enough for my needle and yarn to go through. That's all the space that we need. So I'm just going to do the rest of these. The reason I use the awl tool first is because as you start to move your piece around, the holes shift and start to fall out of alignment. So in using the awl tool first, I'm able to make sure they match up properly before I punch the additional hole. We have about 9 holes punched on both sides. I'm going to go in from the inside and push out my side seams again before I stuff my piece. Of course, this area was where the opening was, so I'm just going to stitch that together. Excuse my gardeners, they're outside, really disrespectful. So right now I'm just going ahead and taking my needle and my yarn and making my indentation marks, or whatever you want to call them. I have no idea what these things are called. And I'm also trying to figure out, as I'm doing this, if I want to have this little bohemian flair, which is my thing, or if I want to keep it very minimalist. So in doing that, because both of our holes match up properly, you're just going to go through the back end with your needle and thread. And I'm standing up doing this because leather is way thicker than fabric, so it requires a little more pressure to push the piece together and to get that needle and thread or needle and yarn through, especially with all of this stuffing that I have in here. So I'm just pushing it in between my legs to match up that hole and to push my needle and yarn through. I've also knotted this end, so then once you pull it through, lay that down on the right side and then press down as far as you want to go. Right now I'm just trying to get my crease lines in here, so that's about right. I don't want to go too far down. That's a good crease line. And then I'm just going to knot this. I'm just gonna do a basic knot as close to the leather as I can. And then I'm actually gonna do a double knot because I want the knot to appear a little thicker, not too small. So I'm just doing that knot right below it and give it a nice pull. And because I'm still trying to figure out if I'm gonna do this little decorative thing right here or keep it plain, I started doing this as I finished the other ones. But if I wanted to add this little flare, I would just wrap it around, tie a knot, and get this appearance. So I might do these all the way around, kind of like that. So now I'm just gonna finish my last hole, which will be the center hole. And as you can see, the center hole will really give it the depth that it needs to give to add those creases. I will probably do this one over. But yeah, that's pretty much that. Also, a quick tip, if you decide to use yarn, if you make this project, these were the only needles that I had available. I was not about to go out and buy anything longer or thicker or any of that. So a quick tip to get the yarn through the hole, because for most needles the hole is pretty small unless they're using a yarn needle. What I did was took a little piece of tape, pinched the ends between the tape as thin as I could possibly get it, cut off that excess tape thin enough to where it would fit in between the needle hole. Oops, it's a little sticky. So now I can pull my yarn through. And this is a pretty wide needle, pretty thick needle. So as long as you have a good amount of space to put your yarn through, you should be okay using that technique. Then I'm going to take as much as I need. Cut that off. Cut the end with the tape off. And then tie a knot at the end. Actually double knotted it just in case it wants to be slick and try to come out while I'm yanking it through the leather. And that's that. Cut off that end. There's your needle and yarn. So after I finished adding yarn to all of my holes, this was my finished result. I really love this little thing. I decided to do one side with this little bohemian flare where there's extra yarn, and then on the opposite side, in case I want to switch it up one day, the other pieces of yarn are very minimalist. I really love the way that this came out. It was a super easy, fun project. Anybody could do this if you have a good sewing machine, or even if, I don't know, if you want to hand stitch, hey, that's on you. Don't you put that on me. But yeah, wonderful project. Love it. I love the new feel that it gives my home. It's just like buying a new piece of decor. So yeah, super easy, fun project. If you decide to give it a try, yeah, try it. Why not? Try it. Anyway, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace out.